Liam Q my day effect. Not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make it.
Don't dig this hole. Phil, Predator guy, always manages to do well, but he is a shocking personality. You guys got a trophy? No. It was pre-bit.
No, I like from Richard Mendenhall.
Right, I'm a tag, Jack! I'm a fucking tag!
Forever and always a tank, Phil. Welcome to the LOC Report. It is the last episode of the regular season, but we've still got a few more for you in the season. But yeah, today's episode will be a good one as we are looking back, obviously, at week 13, which was a pivotal week, and week 14, which will be going down to the wire. And as always, we have Chris Leach. How's it going, Chris?
Good day. Yes, all is well. All is well. That's it. I mean, this is where you want to be on a Sunday morning. Yeah, so there's
absolutely.
It's currently raining. It's horrible. That's it. But there's not long to go now. There's T-minus nearly 8 hours until all this kicks off for the last time for some of you. Anyway, some of you this year. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, very very exciting day.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't quite get the pre-game show, but we've got a game day show, which is the next best thing. And as you say, yeah, for most of the league, they'll be dropping off after this week, other than the consolation bracket, of course, for a few others. But yeah, no, the big stuff is coming, and we won't delay then. We'll just get straight into it with the league news. Transactions. We haven't really had any interesting transactions the last couple of weeks, but it's week 14. We got a few to add to the flavour. Bucking the trend added Cam Akers for Darnell Mooney for $20. He didn't play him, but he did have a good game on Thursday. So if Bucking the trend makes it, it could be a good addition. What do you make of it, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I totally agree with you there. Having, as we'll see a little bit later on, I said did have a good day on Thursday. So yeah, definitely one to look at. I think at this point of the year, if you've got the budget, then you may as well use it, because there's going to be not many players out there right now that are going to warrant that sort of investment at this point of the year. So yeah, I think why not? And certainly it seemed to prove out this week. So if he can be a number one back at this time of the year, that is much more than the $20 is worth.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, we only need to see what Brashard Perriman did last year around this time to see what the right waiver ride can do at the right time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Our next one then, it's more for the hilarity of it. Gridiron Gang adds Mike Davis for Adrian Peterson. It's free agent again. He's back, third time round. He will go into the Ring of Honor.
Absolutely. So I was going to say, this is a guy who's at certain points of the year, something held your year together at certain points.
Absolutely.
So yeah, bring him back in, for a last week hurrah. Why not?
Exactly. And you didn't even know the title of the episode, Chris, but you tied him well, because the episode is called The Last Hurrah. So well done on that.
Well, there you go. It's perfect then in that.
Speaking of Last Hurrah, Ixan added Mike Glennon for Mitch Trubisky, which looks like the most bizarre transaction move, real life or otherwise, you would ever see. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, I mean that is a strange one. I'm not gonna lie, but he's playing the Titans this week. It could be a bit of a shootout, a bit of a high scoring game. So I kind of see his point. But yeah, and it's like Mike Glenn's been awful the last couple of weeks, by no means. But yeah, it's certainly a move that no one really expected to see at any point of the year, let alone this one.
No, definitely not. But yeah, as you say, he's not been too bad, so we'll see what happens, I guess. The award season's rapidly approaching the LOC as well. Won't reveal the shortlist yet, as we still have one more week for things to change. But we will reveal the awards shortlist in next week's episode. But we'll go straight to the Week 13 reviews now. And our marquee matchup last week, Chris, I think was Bucking the Trend You Are Gold, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Yes. So where are we at? Where were we at?
I think it was because we picked 2 weeks in a row.
We did 2 weeks in a row. That's right.
So we're rolling with it anyway. Regardless, it is Bucking the Trend against You Are Gold. In week 13, the wildcard holder and possible new leader of the Portsmouth division with a win and a loss from Forge Flyers, bucking the trend, took on the Southampton division hopeful You Are Gold. A hotly contested game with two teams that we could be seeing again over the next couple of weeks. It wasn't a high score, but it was a close one. You Are Gold edging it out 93 to 87. Depending on what the Detonators did in their game, that could give You Are Gold the lead in the division. And for bucking the trend, they missed an opportunity to go ahead in the wildcard. In their division. Do they also lose out on the wildcard? We'll see. But they lost this one. Kyler Murray had a 22-point day for You Are Gold. Still not quite firing like it was, but definitely a good amount of points there. Kenyon Drake got 12. Nick Chubb got 17. They needed those two back. Adam Thielen got 14. And Marquise Brown got 10 points to seal the win on Tuesday night. Don't say that very often. For bucking the trend, Taysom Hill started improved quality once again with 28 points. But other than Wayne Gorman with 14 and the Rams D with 16, nothing else really doing, and it was a close one, and it did cost them. History of this matchup all time now: bucking the trend take their first loss against You Are Gold, and are now 1-1. Chris, not the most fireworks game, but a close, interesting game between two potential playoff teams.
Absolutely, yes. I totally agree. And to be honest with you, before this game, we did say that it was going to be a very close affair. That bucking the trend needed those key players, those big time players to turn up. In some extent that they did. And you look at guys like Hill, who probably should have had a couple of touchdowns on the day anyway, but didn't. Didn't count anyway. Metcalf, but they went for decent yardage. Wayne Gorman, as we said a couple of weeks ago, has been a really good waiver wire addition, and 135 yards from scrimmage is fantastic. But the lack of Josh Jacobs, the lack of that second receiver, even in a 45-point win, a New England receiver doesn't get more than 15 yards. That to me is a little bit crazy. But let's give him credit where credit's due. Taysom Hill has been a fantastic addition. And has cobbled together a decent score for a good week there. But we mustn't forget about the winner of this one and how that really can propel them on. Because You Are Gold, that's it. They've been across the course of the year very, very, very consistent. They've had some ups and downs, granted, but they've always got a result when they needed to get it, and this is one of them. And you look at that first four, look at Murray, Drake, Chubb, and Thielen. Those are the guys that they expected to be able to deploy and get those type of points to get them across the line. All the touchdown each, fantastic. Marquise Brown again coming in with that one touchdown, 39 yards as well. That's the type of thing that they expected to see more of this year, but haven't done so. And Cooper Kupp solid as usual. But the one thing, the Bears D, it's it. It might be great in real life, fantasy-wise, still not great. But that's not necessarily what's holding them back right now, because they've gone and done something that we didn't expect them to do midpoint of the year, which is fight for a division title. 92-point win at this point of the year over a difficult opposition is exactly what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right about the Bears. Their defense had been good early this season, but they've not been a good unit since, certainly with the offense not helping them out much either. You're right to point to bucking the trend and what costed them. Tyreek Hill, had Andy Reid challenged that play, that would have given bucking the trend the win on that catch that was a catch. He's about Jacoby Myers. I would say 15 yards isn't bad on a day where Cam Newton only passed for 69 in a 45-0 win. Yes. How often do you see that?
Absolutely not. That's it. It's crazy. Defensive beatdown.
Yeah, absolutely. So, You Are Gold sitting atop the division and bucking the trend. We'll see what happened elsewhere to see if they held on to the wild card. Our next game was between Tom's Tyrants and Ixan. Ixan were eliminated for playoffs, but they could still play spoilers against Tom's Tyrants, who were very much still hoping to make it. They needed to win out and get some help, which sounds easier on paper because of how good their team has been, but they were surprised by an out-of-nowhere Ixan team scoring 110 points, while Tom's Tyrants sputter to 64. Looking down the lineups for Ixan, Trubisky got the start, only got 15, but that didn't matter because Chris Carson got 17, Miles Gaskin got 12, Darren Waller erupted for a career day, 32 points, and the special teams, Sanders and Seahawks, chipping 14 and 13 respectively as well. Tom's Tyrants were just left in the dust, where the rookie quarterback against Bill Belichick's team strikes again, and Justin Herbert only got 4 points. Which hilariously wasn't anywhere close to the worst of the Tom's Tyrants players. Devontae Adams did what he usually does with 24, and Younghoe Koo, I suppose you've got to say the same about him with 12, but obviously nowhere near enough for Tom's Tyrants, and this game now eliminates them from the playoffs. History of this matchup all time now, Ixan are 9-8 over Tom's Tyrants, so they take the edge in the series. Bitterly disappointing end for Tom, of course, but they were obviously coming back from 0-5. They were always going to be up against it, weren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. It took 1 week to derail the comeback, and yeah, we mentioned this last week that we both thought that Ixan could do something, but weren't quite convinced as to how that would be done. And well, it takes no convincing now because that is a dominant win. Yeah, Tom Tyrants, the wheels fell off the wagon as soon as Justin Herbert stopped throwing a significant amount of yards and touchdowns a game. Miles Sanders really hasn't led up to his number one status this year. That first round pick may have been a bit of a waste at certain points of the year, but you can't knock the fact that Tom has done very, very well with cobbling together a team that went so badly in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the year to come back to where he is now and have a shot of what he could do. So that fair play. But let's be honest, there's it has been the bedrock of that team has been over the last few weeks Herbert, Gibson, Allen, and Adams, and only Adams fired this week. As for Ben, great coaching effort. You cannot knock it. It helps to have a few of his weapons back. Went with Trubisky, not unbelievable numbers, but when you have a guy like Darren Waller go for 32 points of a game, doesn't really need to. Carson and Gaskin, just absolutely what I needed 3 or 4 weeks ago to be able to preserve their run to the playoffs. And as you say, solid effort from the kicker and DST. Jason Sanders has been great as a kicking option for most of the year. So 109 points or 110 points at this point of the year. Is very surprising for a team that we thought was completely dead on the canvas not 2 or 3 weeks ago. But it helps to have plus matchups in an ideal week against a difficult team who were pretty much the polar opposite, really.
It's the roles definitely reversed in this one, but it's as you said, when we looked at these games, we did see the path for Ixan, and the path did present itself as it would happen. They didn't even need Darren Waller to win either, which is the most hilarious part of it. Yeah,
that's crazy. So teams Tom was pumping in, as we said, for weeks. 10-1, 9-2, 11-0 performances against across the whole league, and that's it. Unfortunately, sometimes you just fall at the last, and that's happened this time. Not meant to be.
No, for sure. Our next game then was It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia Eagles versus Bare Necessities. Ross's team took on Bare Necessities in this Week 13 matchup. Ross's team leading up the division entering this one. A win would practically seal the division for them. Meanwhile, for Bare Necessities, they were already eliminated. And again, just looking to play spoilers. And the spoilers were plenty this week because they did have a 137-point week, which was a league-wide highest, to 84 points for Ross's team. Looking down the lineups, let's start with the winners, Bare Necessities. Josh Allen, he had a terrific day. They've become a pass-first team, and he got 38 points in that effort. Dalvin Cook, tame for his efforts, but he's still got 18 points. Jonathan Taylor got 20. Travis Kelce got 20. J.K. Dobbins got 13. And the Dolphins did got 21. So a great team win there for Bare Necessities. Meanwhile, on the other side for Ross's team, Aaron Rodgers is in the midst of his MVP caliber year. He got 30 points. Aaron Jones got 21 points. and Alvin Kamara got 16, but there was really nothing else around that other than Stephon Diggs' 9 points, and it really, they could have won anyway, but now they go into a possible Week 14 showdown for a playoff spot, depending what happened in the Dream Teams game. So the history of this matchup all time, bare necessities are 6-3 now, dropping one more against Ross. Opportunity missed for Ross's team.
Yes, opportunity missed in some ways, but we know how good bare necessities have been, and this is the annoying thing with this team, is that they probably should be in playoff contention, but they have weeks like this where they absolutely think, you know what, this is the best team in the league, and the stats prove it. We'll see that later on, that they should be higher than they are, but for some reason it's games like this where they outscore teams by a significant amount. They score 130 points, 140 points, in games which don't matter. And then when it does matter, they lose by 5. So I just can't work it out. But this is a stacked roster on bare necessities. And again, if and when the new rules are brought in for high scoring teams, this is the kind of thing that we're going to look at. But yeah, a great team effort there for 137 points at this point in the season. Fantastic. And, I think there's those couple of rookie running backs that you took a punt on earlier on in the year, are beginning to pay off now. So, yeah, I don't think next year you're going to end up with the same sort of team like that. But hey, there's always rookies to be had. On the other side, Ross's team, again, Green Bay bailing them out a little bit. Obviously, Kamara doing what he does, but this is a problem that I've got with this team, is that if they do get to the playoffs, which obviously will be sorted out this week, they have the tendency to be able to go absolutely astronomical or absolutely, well, I say nothing at all on certain players, and that's not what you want to see or feel at this point of the year. But they do have the potential to go on a long way. I think we've seen that countless times throughout the year. But yeah, it only takes 1 week, and this was the kind of week that they don't really want to see, perhaps, in the next 2.
Yeah, definitely, and you're right, with Ross's team being so reliant on the Packers and the Saints, you've got 4 players tied up with 2 teams. If they don't have a good week, which the Packers did in this one, but the Saints didn't really, or at least the running game didn't have a particularly good one. It cripples them with the approach he's had. So, yeah, we shall see what happens. Like I say, we'll preview the Week 14 game once we find out what happens in the Dream Teams game. But next we'll go to the preview of the Toilet Bowl. Or the Toilet Bowl based on standings at least. It was Gridiron Gang against the Tuck Farts. For 2 teams that have been out of the running for a while now, Gridiron Gang took on the Tuck Farts, who entered this one with a 7-game losing streak, rapidly running out of chances to pick up wins, and they didn't convert on this one, as Gridiron Gang won in an 84-59 game, which was very fitting of the 2 teams. Phil has now dropped 8 games in a row, meanwhile Gridiron Gang improves to 5-8. Looking down the lineups, Kirk Cousins made the spot start for Gridiron Gang and delivered 27 points. Adrian Peterson filling in for the DeAndre Swift got 18 points, and the Packers D got 14 points there, with some high-low figures there chipping in towards the 84. On the other side, for the Tuck Farts, Mahomes got 21, Hopkins got 11. That's it. That's all you need to know. Nothing else there for the Tuck Farts, which has been the case all season long. And that's where we are. History of this matchup all time. Gridiron Gang are now 7-9 against the Tuck Farts. Playing for pride at this point, but it's safe to say that there is little pride in the Tuck Farts camp nowadays.
No, that's it. That has been prideless for a while, and certainly you don't need to play well against them now to be able to win, because we know what's going to happen. You know you're going to get Mahomes to score 20 to 30 points a week, maybe a bit more. Hopkins is going to score what he scores if he scores a TD. Otherwise, that team is bereft of any sort of talent that's firing. Guys like Juju and Claypool haven't really fired for 4 weeks. Sanders hasn't fired all year. He's been on COVID for a while. So's Ingram, and I don't know. But I think it's clear that the Tigers want the season to be over, regroup, restart again, perhaps next year, and go from there. As for you, your start of Kirk Cousins was justified, as was your spot start of Peterson, as you say. The Packers did well against Philly. As we said last week, Carson Wentz was the most sacked QB in the league. 7 more sacks later, he gets pulled from the game. But otherwise, there's some middling yardage there, which helps you along, but isn't necessarily why you won the game. The reason why you won the game is that your QB played well, Peterson played well, and the other team just aren't that good.
Yeah, pretty much. And it was a real shame that Frank Gore got injured, because I was actually quite giddy about playing a running back core that has a combined age of 72. And
actually, that's
and Ty Johnson actually had quite a good game for the Jets as it happened.
Yeah.
So, which is what I thought would happen with Gore. So it was really annoying that he went out injured for me to start with. But that didn't matter for the rest of the game. And a little nice win to finish up the season for Green.
Absolutely.
Our next game then was another crucial game between two playoff hopefuls, the Dream Team against Bedadnaders. Opportunities for these two. Bedadnaders holding on to the Southampton division entering the week with cash for Gold's win. They needed to win to stay ahead and obviously get a good shot in at the wild card. Meanwhile, the Dream Team needed to win with Ross's team losing to go into a Week 14 showdown for the winner of that division, and that's exactly what happened in another close one. 88-84. Looking down the lineup, Russell Wilson still not firing. He got 17, and that was just about enough for the Dream Team. Ezekiel got 10. Jarvis Landry got 12. Corey Davis erupted for 24 points. And no other double-digit points there, but a few high single digits, which got them the points they needed for the Detonators. Deshaun Watson got 19, James Robinson got 17, Calvin Ridley got 11, and Harrison Butker kicking his way to 17 points. But the real costly thing for this game was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was questionable to enter this one, very questionable. He was the dreaded active, but only for emergencies, which cost the Detonators, as they would have played Eric Ebron, who would have got them the 7 points they needed to win this one otherwise. So a very tough pill to swallow here. The Dream Team are the victor of the spoils, and the history of this matchup all time is now 10-6 in favour of the Dream Team. A massive opportunity missed for the Detonators here. Still obviously not out of it, but God, you gotta hate it when that happens.
Absolutely, you've got to hate that. But look, this is a guy who won by 0.02 of a point earlier on in the year, so
yes.
That's it. You make your own luck, you have your fair share, and he just hasn't had it this time. No, you're right. Having someone who's healthy and held out is far from what you need in a game where you've got nowhere to turn. But at the same time, it's not as if it was a vintage week for him. The guys that he'd expect to pulled through with some reasonable yardage and reasonable results. But that's it. That does get you. But 17 points from your kicker as well. Let's not lie here. All is not lost. All is not lost. Even if you got 7 points from Clyde and 10 points from your kicking, you'd still feel pretty good about that. But it wasn't to be. Viv has finally stopped the slide. Not from guys that you would expect necessarily. Corey Davis was a decent pickup off the waiver wire earlier on in the year, but nobody expected him to go for that sort of points this week. We've been speaking of for a while that they really are on the downer, and it doesn't help that his running game has been dismantled a little bit. Obviously Zeke is not the same Zeke as years gone by. Kareem Hunt has been sidelined. And whichever Johnson you want to play, David's on IR. Duke's not very good. It's your problem there. And Russell Wilson, who arguably was his saviour for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year, putting up crazy numbers, isn't doing that at the moment. That doesn't allow him to propel to that over 100 that we saw. So, it's going to be an interesting week this week for them. because, say, everything hinges on those guys firing, and I'm not too sure as to what they're going to do. But, yeah, a timely win and a costly one for Bedetnes, but not necessarily his fault.
No, yeah, for sure. And, yeah, you mentioned about the Corey Davis. I believe Viv did slide him in on Sunday, so a good late change to the roster. But
timely.
Yeah, questionable he didn't bring David Johnson off of the reserve for Duke Johnson in a corresponding move. That obviously it would have only made the win a bit more comfortable, but
I did notice that, yeah, and
could have easily cost him the game, easily.
It could have, and yeah, that's the sort of thing to look at, because at the moment, especially with with COVID and with things like that, things are done late. So yeah, absolutely check your team up until the end of the game. You're going to need to do that at the moment, because the amount of times that's going to happen throughout the next couple of weeks is a lot. So
yeah, absolutely,
a lot of chopping and changing.
Definitely. And our last game of week 13, then again it pitted two playoff hopefuls. One very much on inside looking out, but the other one very much outside looking in. Forge Flyers against Pakistan. Forge Flyers and Pakistan took each other on in week 13. Forge Flyers leading the league and the Portsmouth division, but only on points. Presented with a great opportunity to sign seal their ticket to the playoffs against the Pakistan team. Won 3 in a row, very much on their last legs, and the points aren't with them, but needed an absolute must-win for any chance of playoffs, and they got it in style. 128 points. Meanwhile, Forge Flyers had a bad day at the office with 61. Looking down at the lineups, Pakistan, Ryan Tannehill, he got 34 points. Michael Thomas, 11. David Montgomery, 23. Justin Jefferson, 18. And Deontay Johnson, 13. Justin Tucker got 10 as well, and the Colts got 13. So very much a team effort. Only one player not going into double digits. And this is what we can get from Pakistan when they actually have healthy players. On the other side of the ball for Forge Flyers, Lamar Jackson, he got basically half the team's points with 30. Nothing to be seen for the rest of the team, which I think you can only chalk that up to a bad week, really. So the history of this matchup, all time, Forge Flyers are now 1-6 against Pakistan. Very much your bogey team, Chris. And playoffs still possible for both of these teams. Yeah, I mean, Forge Flyers ran into a bit of a buzzsaw in week 13.
Yes. And I think my early season hyping up of Pakistan is justified when I see results like this, because you're right. If he'd had a team that was fit and not dead for the first 6 weeks of the year, then this is the sort of result I think that we could have expected more consistently. However, it wasn't to be, but this is a snapshot of how Pat's season could have gone. I think that 129 points in a must-win game, as you say, at this point of the year, is, one, unattainable for my team to have got, because that was nothing that going to happen. And secondly, an excellent result. And yeah, you're right. I think that if there's anyone who generated a bit of a momentum, who could scare the two teams behind them a little bit, or in front of them a little bit, then yeah, that is this team. However, I think it's a week too late. I think if the resurgence had started, last week or the week before, and he'd have been going and rolling on, then yeah, we might well have seen this develop in a different way. But good result nevertheless. Yeah, my team's absolutely. It's a die or death this week. I will happily take that, provided everyone has a bad week on the same week. But yeah, that's it. Try to play the matchups. The matchups were okay. The players were not, for various reasons on the day. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's it. Just say I've got to 60 points. But that's it. This is a game that we said in the preview last week that was going to be very difficult to win, bearing in mind some of the matchups on the other side. And yeah, that's it. It is my bogey team. History just is a weird thing in this league. It just seems to repeat. So yeah. So yeah, better luck next week. It's going to be an interesting end for both these teams.
Absolutely, and yeah, we'll get straight into that right now, because that was all the Week 13 games. So the milestone standing and stats. So in the Southampton division, UR Gold is leading it at the moment by a win. So they are currently in the driving seat, but a loss by them and a win by the Detonators barring some bizarre point swings within that, would almost certainly mean the Detonators head to the playoffs. But UR Gold could still make the wild card. In fact, we'll get to all that in a second. We'll just talk about the divisions now. Pakistan and the Detonators on 7 and 6 right behind. Obviously, the Tugfards long adrift at 3 and 10. Looking at the Portsmouth division, Fortifyers and Bucking the Trend both lost last week, missing their opportunity to seal their ticket to the playoffs. But both still in the current positions by the division lead and the wild card, with Ben Assessi's Nick Sand both at 6 and 7 out of the running. And then the Winchester division, it's going to be a Week 14 showdown for the playoffs, as Ross's team and the Dream Team face off to win this division. Only one of them obviously can, both being at 7-6. The wildcard is no longer an option for these two, so the playoffs start now for them. Meanwhile, Thomas Tyrants obviously eliminated last week. They're at 6 and 7, with Gridiron Gang at 5 and 8. So if we look at the overall, we get a bit of a better picture of the playoff windows. So a few scenarios here. So as I said, UR Gold currently in the driver's seat for the Southampton division, could be usurped by the Detonators if they win, but still have a chance at the playoffs despite possibly losing, depending what happens in the Forge Flyers and Bucking the Trend games. As I said, for Pakistan, they need to win against UR Gold. The Detonators would need to lose, but Pakistan would need about a 45-point swing, so not impossible, but certainly stacked against them. And again, the wild card would require about a 55-point swing for them as well. So very unlikely that would come to fruition as well. So it is pretty much set, but not quite. But Detonators are the real wild card, you would say, for the playoff race. They are at 7 and 6. As I said, a win and a UR Gold loss would pretty much get them the division. If UR Gold win, still very firmly in play. As long as the Detonators win, they would only need one of Forge Flyers or Bucking the Trend to lose. But again, barring some bizarre point swings, they would get the wild card as well. So still very much to play for. A win for both Forge Flyers and Bucking the Trend would seal playoffs for those two, regardless of what happens elsewhere. Likewise for UR Gold. So quite a few different scenarios there. 7 teams still in it, which we like to see. We're going to be a very exciting day. If we look at the breakdown, Ben Assessi's at the top. Not surprising. They're 6 and 7, as you said, Chris. They pile up when they don't need to, and then drop it when they do need the points. But they are top of this metric all the same. Thomas Torrance as well, who are now eliminated with their worst week in a long time, 2 and 9. Ross's team in third. They're obviously currently in place for the playoffs, as is Viv's team. Bucking the Trend, the other wildcard team, in 5th. And then you get the Detonators, UR Gold, Forge Flyers, 6 to 8, all very much either in a playoff position or with a good chance of it. And then Pakistan down there in 9th as well, with perhaps a chance of playoffs. Looking at the coach rankings, not too helpful this time of year, so we won't dwell too much on it. But out of the teams that actually have depth, Forge Flyers doing the best, you would say, but still 175 points on the bench through the season, but by no means bad compared to everyone else. And then you put that all together, you have 3 playoff teams in the top 4 of the power rankings, which you would say is correct, with Forge Flyers at 5th. So this looked a bit weird throughout the year, but it has pretty much levelled out of where it should have done, with only Ben Assessi's punching a bit higher than their actual weight. Talking about milestones, there were quite a few big ones this week. Coach Stubbs Senior got their 90th regular season win, which is the first coach to do so. If we actually go to the stats tab, I'm not sure. I think there may be another coach that could do that this season, but that might be a milestone they hold all on their own. Nope, that is a milestone they will be holding all on their own, at least until next season, so that's quite fun. Coach Barnes and Merritt notched their 80th regular season loss in a corresponding part of that. So, we have some Week 14 games that hold a lot of weight, Chris. We've got Gridiron Gang against Tom's Tyrants, which is just for fun. The Tugfards against Detonators, which Detonators need to win that for a chance at playoffs. We have UR Gold against Pakistan, which is a very weighty playoff game. UR Gold, if they win that, they're in. Pakistan need to win and get some help for their chance. Ixon against Forge Flyers. If Forge Flyers win that one, you are in the playoffs. Same for Bucking the Trend when they play Bare Necessities, and then we obviously have the Winchester Division showdown between Coach Nunn and Coach Nathwani. I don't think we can go anywhere else but there for the market.
I think that is the game of the week. That's got so much right now. That is a cup final.
Absolutely. So here it is. Playoffs in week 14 for Coach Nunn and Nathwani. Here we go. It's always sunny in Philadelphia. Eagles take on the Dream Team. Coach Nathwani supporting Eagles in this Week 14 playoff matchup. You may as well call it that. The winner of this wins the division and goes to the playoff. The loser goes home. Both 7-6. It's going to be a fascinating game to watch during this Sunday evening. And Ross's team currently slated to win it 92 to 90 points. So they will be sealing their ticket to the playoffs according to the projections. Looking down the lineup for Ross's team, Mike Evans comes into the lineup off of the bye in favour of Keelan Cole. Otherwise unchanged from the team that's largely gotten to where they are all season. On the other side for the Dream Team, JD McKissick comes into the lineup. Chris Godwin comes back in from bye. And no other changes there. Ezekiel a bit questionable, but he will play. Outside of that, Damien Harris played Thursday, but did not play for the Dream Team. No other changes there. History of this matchup all time: the Dream Team are 4-3 against Ross's team, so a close one. Chris, preview this fascinating Week 14 matchup we have.
Oh no! This is the game of the week. This could well be the game of the year, because look at that. There are some plus matchups everywhere. Everywhere that you can see, there is a plus matchup. And we like to focus first of all on the QBs. Well, Rodgers against Detroit and Wilson against the Jets. I mean, both absolutely abysmal. You look at those and you think, let's say, well, that could well cancel each other out. I think Wilson against the Jets, could well be. Especially in Seattle, that's it. That's a make or break one for Viv. That's it. But as we know, so a lot of what Ross's team's about is reliant on Rodgers and Green Bay to perform well. Aaron Jones should steamroll the Lions defense. So maybe it's time to fire up MVS again. Who knows? But right now, and you got Murray and Kamara playing Philly in the situation that they're in at the moment. There could be a lot of offense there. Mike Evans playing Minnesota. They're bad on defense. Diggs playing Pittsburgh. That's it. Their front's very good, but their secondary is a bit suspect at the time, especially at the moment where Josh Allen is. That should be good as well. And the Chiefs playing Miami, especially if they're playing Tua. I think there's going to be some success there. And we forget about Tyler Bass, the kicker, but he really has been great the last half of the year. As for Viv, you've got Elliott, number one. McKissick's going to be the number one there at the moment for everything apart from the goal line. Davis against Jacksonville seems to be, the rapport seems to be there. Godwin, same sort of thing as Evans. But then we get to some of the sticky points, I think. Duke Johnson against the Bears, not good. Browns against Baltimore, not good. So if there's one thing to change up, maybe it's taking Johnson out. Maybe it's putting Michael Pittman against the Raiders in, because the Raiders, as we saw last week, not good. And possibly finding a different streaming defense. But Browns haven't been awful, but do worry against Baltimore this week. They're going to be resurgent. So look, I think that everywhere you see on both teams, key players doing key things, but the Green Bay against Detroit is such a turkey shoot. It really is. And Evans against Minnesota, especially now he's back off the bye. Do I think he's going to out-target and outplay Godwin? Probably. But I don't like Latavius Murray in there every week. He can either do something or nothing. We never said everyone on Viv's team is going to do something if he takes Duke Johnson out. So, yeah, it's a barnstormer. It really is. Again, could be down to QB like we saw earlier in the year, but I think I'm going to go with Ross's team. I think that those Packers are going to get him across the line.
Yeah, I think it is a fairly close matchup, as you say. I mean, you mentioned that the Saints running backs, the Eagles' front four on defense has actually been pretty good, but obviously the Saints are a very good offensive team, so you've got to factor that in. I think the game really comes down to Russell Wilson, as it has all season long for the Dream Team. He has, on paper, the plumbest matchup. I mean, we saw what Derek Carr did to them last week on that for to win the game at the end. Greg Williams isn't there now, though, so you don't know what you're going to see on defense. And obviously, Russell Wilson has been in a massive funk for nearly 2 months now, it feels like. That's where the game hinges for me. If he has a good day, I think the Dream Team win it, because their supporting cast isn't brilliant, but as we saw last week, it's good enough to get them some points. But it really does rest on the shoulders of Russell Wilson. I think he won't light it up, personally. As you say, Aaron Rodgers and Jones are playing Detroit, who again, they've just fired their coach, and they had a better defensive performance against the Bears, but that's not really saying a lot when you factor that. So yeah, I tend to fall with you. I think Ross will punch their ticket to the playoffs here, and the Dream Team will unfortunately be going home. Our next game then, it's one of the oldest matchups in the LOC. Gridiron Gang against Tom's Tyrants. Gridiron Gang take on Tom's Tyrants in Week 14 just for fun, maybe some consolation bracket jostling. Both these teams obviously out of it now. Projections have this one going to Tom's Tyrants 84 to 8. Well, it's basically 84 to 84, but slightly in favour of Tom's Tyrants. Gridiron Gang have had a player play. Robert Woods on Thursday night, he didn't do great. He only got 3.1. Other than that, Mike Davis comes back in. Phil Rivers comes in at quarterback. DeAndre Swift comes in. And that is it in terms of changes there. On Tom's Tyrants side of the ball, they're unchanged at the moment, so their projections will go up, as they still have Antonio Gibson in, who's out. You would think they would probably bring in either Todd Gurley or Gronkowski there. Swift is questionable for Gridiron Gang, but should play. Kenny Golladay has already been ruled out there. History of this matchup all time. Gridiron Gang are 7-6 against Tom's Tyrants. So, nothing playoff of interest here, so we don't have to spend too long on it. One last chance for Tom's Tyrants to cement how good the team is, the best team outside of the playoffs, whereas Gridiron Gang obviously just looking to get some wins at the end of the year.
I think so. I mean, yeah, Robert Woods has always played for you, only got 3 points. So, but in a reasonably tough matchup, as you say. I think that if there's one week you could probably do something, it's this one, because the matchups are with you. Rivers got a good one, Swift or Peterson, whichever one's got a good one. Lockett's got a good one. Eckler's got a good one. The Panthers D's got a good one. I think that there's definitely a route for victory here. Tom's obviously been in come off that disappointment of last week, but we look here. Herbert and Allen against Atlanta, should be easy pickings there. Adams against Detroit once again should be reasonably straightforward. Same with Robinson against Houston. So, the Saints versus Philly is an interesting one though at the bottom there on the defense, because they're playing Jalen Hurts this week. We don't really know what we're going to get from him. Whether you're going to get a Taysom Hill effect, he's just going to run around everywhere and no one's going to know what's going on, or they're going to continue just to be a sack fest. So we'll see, but I think if you bring Gurley into the equation, or even Gronk, as you say, then it's certainly looking strong. So I'm not going to rule your team out by any means, because I think that they've been there's some guys there that could do something and do some damage, but Tom's team, we've seen when they're all on the field and doing what they do, they've been able to get to winnable numbers. So I think we're going to go there, but don't count your team out just yet. Yeah, no, for sure, completely agree. You'd be, to see what Tom's Tyrants have been doing the last 6 weeks, you'd be silly not to go with them. But Justin Herbert has slowed down a bit of late, and Atlanta's defense has actually been much, much improved since Dan Quinn left. So I agree, he should still have a good day. But if he has a bad day like he did last week, and that obviously means Allen has a bad day, that's a large part of Tom's team
taken out there. So that is the route, as you say, for a possible gridiron game of victory. On to the next game then. We have the Tuckfards against the Detonators, which does have playoff ramifications. One of the most bitter rivalries in the LOC, but Detonators take on the Tuckfards. It is that old story Corona Bowl matchup game. But Detonators need a win for a chance at playoffs. If they get the win, they have a pretty good shot at it. But they need some help from elsewhere. Meanwhile, for the Tuckfards, I'd say they're playing for pride and looking to play spoilers, but that's probably not true, as they've dropped 8 in a row. And very much scrabbling around to be able to find a win. But Detonators are projected to win this one, 89-75. When we look down the lineups, let's start on Tuckford's side. I don't believe they have changed their team. For the Detonators, Ronald Jones comes into the lineup, as does Hunter Henry currently, which means Julio Jones, who was out, has been sent to the bench, and Brandon Cooks, who is questionable, is also on the bench. No injury stuff other than DeAndre Hopkins for the Tuckfards, but he should play. History of this matchup all time, but Detonators are 4-11 against the Tuckfards. And Chris, we obviously know that history likes to stay true in the LOC for some bizarre reason. It surely can't here, can it?
I don't think so. I think that there's nothing we can really work on that suggests that Phil's going to win this game. Yes, Mahomes and Hopkins. Well, I say that. Mahomes he's going to do Mahomes thing. He's playing in Miami, decent weather, should be fine. Hopkins playing the Giants, not unbelievably good matchup. I'm going to say Kyler Murray hasn't been in real life, fantasy wise anyway. He hasn't been great, but it's everybody else. It's Smith-Schuster, Sanders, Claypool, who looked every bit the new number one for a long time this season, but hasn't really replicated that in the last few weeks. And they're playing in Buffalo, which is this time of the year not the ideal place to go. Ingram is in that god awful committee, and the Ravens D, they might have a good day, but that's not going to be enough to be able to hold them up, I don't think. In comparison to what we look at on the other side, and that team has been on the charge, but guys like Watson who play in Chicago, that's a difficult matchup. Robinson against Tennessee is probably his most difficult matchup for a while, because even though Tennessee's secondary is pretty bad, they do defend the run reasonably well. So you can't really look past it. I'm not even going to try and entertain that. But at the same time, is that there are certain key players on Ollie's team that could certainly reduce the length, the margin of win. I know pick Tyler Boyd up again. He's playing Dallas. Might be a nice play if he doesn't really feel too comfortable with some of those guys. But look, they've got the fact of the matter is they've got 2 number 1 running backs. They've got Hunter Henry, who's a great red zone target in a red zoneable game, and a semi number 1 running back if Clyde is fit to play, and Calvin Ridley, who's been good in numbers, and the Titans D, who play Mike Glennon. Who knows what Mike Glennon's going to do? Yeah,
indeed. Yeah. No, I think you're right. It's it would be silly to question Detonators, but like you say, you can definitely see them not having a great week, but you've got to think that even that being the case, it's probably still going to be enough for them to beat the Tuckfards.
Yeah, I think it's fortunate that he's playing the team that he's playing at this point, but it would be a very Phil-like thing to do, to absolutely troll Ollie at the last day. For play.
Yeah, that would be...
And give the playoffs to Pat, potentially, which is even more hilarious.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking of Pat, our next game is UR Gold against Pakistan. UR Gold take on Pakistan in week 14. Pakistan coming off of a 4-game win streak. They need this one and a lot of help for a chance at the playoffs. But for UR Gold, winning in for them. But they've not been the most reliable team this year, so let's see if they can do it. They are not projected to win it. 91 at the moment. Looking down the lineups, so let's start with UR Gold. Kenyon Drake questionable, but he'll play. Cooper Kupp, he got 9.3 on Thursday night. CeeDee Lamb comes into the flex for them. For Pakistan, at the moment, they look like they are unchanged. Talking about other injuries, Kiki Kute, questionable, he should play. Joe Mixon, there was rumblings he could return, so we'll just have to keep an eye on that one. History of this matchup all time. Pakistan, where are you? I think we've got Cash for Gold here. Let's go there. Cash for Gold, you are gold of 4-2 against Pakistan all time. This is probably only behind the Winchester Division Bowl for interest, I would say, in this week. It's a very key game for both teams here.
Absolutely. If I were Ollie Gardner at this point of the year, I would be messing myself. Because those matchups are horrible. The first four, oh my word. Murray, Drake, Chubb and Thielen all got tough defenses. You know, so say what you want about the Giants, but they do have a decent defense, and they turned up this year with that. You know, Murray hasn't been great against teams that have been, you know, strong defensively, and especially away from home this time of the year in the cold. It's not something that they would be necessarily be expected to thrive in. Chubb against Baltimore, same thing. Is that how much offense they really going to see? And when they do, that defense is full of bad men. Same with Thielen against Tampa. Say playing in Tampa. Say they're coming off a bye week. They're going to be fresh. Not for me. And then you look at the bottom there. Say Bears versus Houston. Well, Bears defense haven't been great fantasy wise. Say Deshaun Watson's in good form. I don't know, but there's one game that might thrive is at home this time of the year against somebody like that. Whereas on the other side, you just really can't look past some of these things. You know, Tannehill and AJ Brown against the Jags, big plus. David Montgomery against Houston. Well, we've seen what countless running backs done against Houston this year. They've just dismantled them. He's in great form. Yeah, Michael Thomas looks like he's the number one once again there. Justin Jefferson playing Tampa. Yeah, that's possibly the only downer, as well as Deontay Johnson and Buffalo, but they've been quite pass heavy at the moment. Have the Steelers, and he seems to be the main beneficiary of that. But yeah, when we look at the Colts D as well, playing Las Vegas in Las Vegas, I think that's definitely a good matchup there too. So yeah, that's it. It's a Pakistan win for me, Nate.
Yeah, I think so. And you mentioned about Deontay Johnson. They could always go to Amari Cooper, who's been fairly solid on the bench, or even Deebo Samuel, who's been okay as well. Yeah, you're right. Like, Cup got 9 points on Thursday night for You Are Gold. It's okay, but the guys they rely on to win games, as you say, all have bad matchups, and it would be quite easy to see none of them have a decent game. And yeah, that we've seen this from You Are Gold quite a lot this season, where they've just flattered to deceive quite a lot. And this just seems to be one of those weeks where you can see it completely happening. For Pakistan, obviously they're coming off a 129-point game, and you can absolutely see them doing that again with some of the guys and the matchups they have. So the most hilarious thing about this game, I'm going to go Pakistan as well, but Pakistan could obviously win and still not get the playoffs, and effectively take Your Gold out of the playoffs, possibly in the same scenario. Yep. So again, another interesting game to keep an eye on, not only for their own playoff chances, but the wider playoff chances elsewhere as well. Our next game then, penultimate game of the regular season, we have Iksan against Forge Flyers. Iksan take on Forge Flyers in a Week 14 Friendship Bowl, the rematch of Corona Bowl 11 as well. And the chips are on the line for Forge Flyers. With a win, they're in. With a loss, they'll have to see what happens elsewhere for Iksan. They're out of it now, but coming off of a very good week last week, they'll be looking to perhaps play spoilers once again. Chris Hart is projected to win this one at the moment, though, 90-86. Looking down the lineup for Forge Flyers, James Conner comes in for Benny Snell, let's say. Terry McLaurin comes into the lineup, as does Curtis Samuel. Does DJ Chark come in as well, Chris? No, I think he was already there. He can stay. But still quite a lot of flux for Forge Flyers on the other side. Kirk Cousins starting for Iksan. Gio Bernard comes in, as does Brandon Ayuk. So a bit of change on both sides there. Injury-wise, Christian McCaffrey doubtful. He will not play after suffering that midweek quad injury. Miles Gaskin on the COVID list. He won't play. Same for DJ Moore. Otherwise, clean bill of health. History of this matchup all time. Forge Fires are 11-4 against Ixan, so you'll very much be hoping history rings true. And just to follow back on Padistan before we go forward as well, Mixon has been ruled out for the game. Chris, are you feeling confident that history is on your side?
Yes. I'm feeling confident that history's on my side. I'm also pleased that there are some matchups in there for key players that are going to be good for me this week. It's good for Lamar. It's good for Derrick Henry. It should be good for Connor if if the weather's bad in Buffalo. DJ Chark is in theory the number one receiver there. I think he was a bit banged up last week. Good for McLaurin against the San Francisco secondary as well. And Curtis Samuel comes in because he's just he's been using the running game, using the passing game. DJ Moore is out, so they've got to go somewhere. I'm feeling pretty good. As for Ben, he has got some tough matchups. I'm not going to lie. He's, as we have been talking about Mike Glennon throughout the whole podcast and the whole of this week, he's now dropped him. That's it. And brought Kirk Cousins in a wretched matchup against Tampa. Mostert, not great. Darren Waller, Indy's D is far more stout than the Jets, so we're not going to see 32 points again. Ayuk, again, Washington. Say what you want about the Washington football team, but Ron Rivera's got that defense working as a Ron Rivera defense should. But it's down the bottom that we see a little bit more. We see Carson against the Jets, the Seahawks playing the Jets, and then Giovanni Bernard against the Cowboys. All three are plus, and they're going to need all three of those to do well. To give them a full hold in the game. But it's definitely going to be a close contest. The good thing is that we know where Ben's going to be tonight. Whilst my team's a bit all over the place in terms of timings, as I've got the Ravens and the Steelers at some points. But you know what? That's it. I've got to win to have a chance of playoffs here. So history's for me. I'm feeling confident.
Sure. Well, you don't have to win for playoffs necessarily, depending on what happens also, but the win would seal it for you.
It's nice to win for playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah. You like to go in with a head of steam as opposed to falling over backwards. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've got some very good players first and foremost, and some pretty decent matchups there as well. Ixan, great week last week, but that was the aberration of what they have been lately. They had been a bit better to their credit, where they've obviously had a bit more guys back, but we haven't seen it consistently. It is worth noting that Ben is playing for a non-losing season. He, of course, got inducted into the Hall of Fame for that 7-year stretch without a single losing season, and they are at great peril of not being able to extend that to 8 here. You mentioned about Kirk Cousins playing Tampa. I think Cousins has been playing great, but Tampa coming off a bye week with their pass defense being as good as it is, and their run defense, which, let's face it, is what Vikings need to be able to establish for any success for anyone on that offense. I just think even without, you take a good quarterback score out of the cards in this game, I just don't see how they're going to be able to muster enough points to contend with what your team should in theory do. So I'm going with your team as well. There you go. And our final game then of the Week 14 regular season, Pitt's bucking the trend against bare necessities. Bucking the Trend faces off against bare necessities in Week 14. Bucking the Trend hold on to the wild card. They could take the division, but a win either way would give them playoffs for the first time in their career. Meanwhile, for bare necessities, they are just out to play spoilers once again in Jocelyn Flag Consolation Bracket. Bucking the Trend are projected to win this one 107-92, and they've got a massive boost in 25 points from the Rams D on Thursday Night Football. Elsewhere, Josh Jacobs comes back into the lineup. He will be back from his ankle injury. Robbie Anderson comes in back from bye. And no other changes there. On the other side for bare necessities, let's see, I don't think there are any changes there either. And a clean bill of health for both of the teams as well, so they have everyone available. But yeah, bucking the trend, ruining Cam Akers being on their bench with a 19-point game. History of this matchup all time, bare necessities are 1-1, so it is a split series between these two. So, yeah, bucking the trend, obviously, off to a massively good start. Will it be enough for them to punch their first ticket to the playoffs?
I think that it's going to be very, very, very favourable for them. Yeah, we've seen over the last few weeks what they've been capable of, and yeah, it was unfortunate that they managed to lose last week. But having Josh Jacobs back in, I think will help their cause, albeit playing Indianapolis, which is difficult. But you look at those three receivers. You look at Hill, you look at Anderson, who should be the number one receiver in that offense this week, and Metcalf playing the Jets, and you think that is a good trio to have right now. Gorman playing in Arizona as well. I think that's that's going to continue. So we saw that 135 points from scrimmage that 135 yards from scrimmage last week. He's clearly being used, clearly being utilised. And I think that's going to be the same again. Throw a touchdown in there. It's a really good week. And Crosby against Detroit. Look at the kicker. Well, so there's going to be a lot of offense there. Even if it's just extra points, that should total 4 or 5. You would have thought. Also, on the other side, Allen, Cook. Yeah, both of them don't have unbelievably good matchups against either Pittsburgh or Tampa, if I'm honest. But both of them are in tremendous form, and I think that accounts for a lot. But the form players that you see there are Jonathan Taylor, who came off the back of a great performance last week and now can do the same again against the Raiders. The Raiders have been pretty bad over the last 3 or 4. They just haven't looked like their early season form whatsoever. And Kelsey does what he does. He is that red zone target in that offense. But for all the good, you got Parker and Dobbins down there. Dobbins got a good week last week, but you just don't really know how the splits are going to be in that committee. And Parker, well, the Chiefs can't get to Tua in the same sort of way. But if they don't, he's still the number one there. And the big change that we don't see regularly is the kicker in defense at this point. Yeah, they bought Joey Sly, they bought the 49ers D, and anyone kicking in Denver is going to be going for some high yardage, you would have thought. And the 49ers against Washington, well, yeah, Alex Smith hasn't been the most mobile, and quite rightly. And yeah, I think that's probably the thinking to get to. And they've just dropped the Dolphins deep because they're playing Kansas City this week. So, yeah, I think for Mike, it's not a great matchup to have at this point of the year when really everything's riding on it. But to have a 25-point lead going into the game is obviously beneficial. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with bucking the trend just. I think that if Allen and Cook weren't playing two quite formidable defenses, I think my thinking would have been different. But they are. And yeah, I don't think we can get around that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. 25 points is obviously a great start, but in no means an insurmountable total. When you look at, there are some trap areas on bucking the trend's team, as there are for bare necessities, but bare necessities coming off a 130+ point week as well. It's a difficult test for bucking the trend, and as we say, they don't have to win to get into the playoffs, but the win would seal it for them. Yeah, at the same time, you look at bare necessities team, like you say, it's kind of tough to find where they're going to find 25 extra points or however many more points than their defense will get that they need to make up somewhere. But you could see it absolutely, as you say. The two guys that have the bad matchups, Allen and Cook, certainly could defy them. Pittsburgh defense has been good this year, but it's not always been great. And Dalvin Cook's obviously a generational talent at running back. So yeah. I'm going to go bucking the trend as well, just because you cannot overlook 25 points in the bag from a position where it can be very hard to get that, a lot of points from. So that could prove to be the difference. And that is it. So that is the Week 14 previews. I'm sure we'll all be messaging and following along the excitement as it happens this week. this Sunday. Just before we go, obviously we have debate corner. John, would you kindly usher us in for one last time in the regular season? Thank you, John. We've talked playoffs to death, so we're going to go to a slightly different place for debate corner. Who will win the consolation bracket? So, to define that, we first have to see what teams are currently there at the moment. It's Bedenna's Dream Team, Pedestan, and Ben Necessities in the consolation bracket, I think. But we obviously need to factor in that some of those teams may upgrade themselves to playoffs, while others will fall into it. At the same vein, teams below them in Tom's Tyrants, Ixan, that's probably the only two teams that could punch up into the consolation bracket area at this point as well. So, Chris, who do you think will win the consolation bracket?
If they don't make playoffs, I believe that either Pakistan or Ben Necessities will win the consolation bracket. I'd love to see a final of those two, because that could well, in a different dimension, been the Corona Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to see a final between those two. I think if they were going to duke it out in the final, I do think that Pakistan would win at this point, because we're going to see it over the next few weeks where that team could have gone.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm going to go Tom's Tyrants, just because all they need is a win to get them into the consolation bit, and with how they've been playing lately, certainly not out of the realm for them to just put up 2 scintillating weeks and just win a nice consolation prize, even if they couldn't hoist a Corona Bowl. So that's where I'm going. Right, that is it for the final LOC report of the regular season. As I said, we'll be back next week to look at what happened in Week 14 and preview the playoff games. We will also reveal the award nominees, so it's going to be a good episode. I'm not sure what day will come, but we'll be there at some point. Chris, thank you for joining us once again. Good luck in your hope for the playoffs, and I wish you have a good rest of your Sunday. All of you, good luck in your games, unless you're playing me, Tom. No. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.